The panorama across the city rooftops to the lagoons and the sea beyond is the view that Cagliari offers as its opening argument. It is a strong argument. The Phoenicians founded a settlement here. The Carthaginians expanded it. The Romans built an amphitheater still visible in the hillside. The Pisans constructed the Castello fortifications. And the Spanish left their Baroque churches and their urban grid, all of it layered into a city that wears 3,000 years of occupation with the ease of something that has simply been itself through all of it. The flamingos in the lagoons at the city's edge, thousands of them, pink against the flat water, visible from the road, are the detail that surprises every visitor. Sardinia begins by defying expectations immediately. Whilst in 1962, the Aga Khan sailed along the northeastern coast of Sardinia and decided that what he was looking at was the most beautiful coastline in the Mediterranean. Then he bought it. The Costa Smeralda, the Emerald Coast, was developed from an agreement between the Aga Khan's consortium and the Sardinian regional government that stipulated strict architectural controls. No building could exceed the height of the surrounding vegetation. And all construction had to use local materials in colors drawn from the landscape. The result is a luxury resort development of extraordinary restraint, expensive, exclusive, and beautiful in a way that development of this scale almost never manages. The water is the primary argument.
Yet the color of the Costa Smeralda Sea exists in a register that the Mediterranean does not produce everywhere. Turquoise fading to emerald, fading to deep blue in gradations, so clean that the transitions look painted rather than natural. Porto Cervo, the social heart of the development, operates in summer as the most glamorous marina in Italy. The Costa Smeralda is Sardinia at its most manicured. Knowing that the wild island exists behind it makes it more interesting rather than less. 7 main islands, and over 60 smaller ones scattered across the Strait of Bonifacio between Sardinia and Corsica. La Maddalena Archipelago is a national park of granite and sea that the Mediterranean has been perfecting for longer than recorded history. The granite here is extraordinary, smoothed and shaped by millennia of wind and water into formations of such organic complexity that the rocks appear to have been carved rather than eroded. Balanced boulders, arched formations, surfaces polished to a smoothness that catches the light and holds it. The contrast of this warm pink granite against the water surrounding it is the defining visual of the archipelago. The beaches between the rocks, Spiaggia Rosa with its pink sand colored by crushed coral and shell fragments, the hidden coves accessible only by boat, are among the most pristine in the entire Mediterranean.
Yet the national park designation protects them from development with a seriousness that is visible in their condition. The sea here is so clear that the shadow of the boat is visible on the sandy bottom in 12 meters of water. La Maddalena is the Mediterranean at its most undamaged. Alghero is the city that forgot it was in Italy, founded by the Genoese in the 12th century and captured by the Catalans in 1353.
Alghero has maintained its Catalan identity with a stubbornness that 5 centuries of Italian rule has not substantially altered. The language spoken in the Old Town, Alguerès, a Catalan dialect, is still heard in the streets, still taught in the schools, still present in the street signs that carry both Italian and Catalan names. Spain is visible here in the architecture, in the food, in the particular warmth of a Mediterranean city that learned its social habits from the Western rather than the Eastern Mediterranean. The Old Town sits on a small promontory above the harbor, its medieval walls still encircling the center, the towers at the seawall providing views across the bay toward the Capo Caccia headland, whose limestone cliffs rise vertically from the water. Below the Neptune Grotto inside those cliffs, a cave of stalactites and stalagmites accessible by the 654 steps of the Escala del Cabarol or by boat, is one of the most dramatic natural chambers in the Mediterranean. Alghero is Sardinia's most characterful city. That character is entirely its own. Cala Goloritze is not a beach you drive to, it is a beach you earn. Accessible only by a 2-hour hike down through the limestone mountains of the Gennargentu, or by boat from the small port of Santa Maria Navarrese. This UNESCO-listed cove on Sardinia's eastern coast has been protected from development by the same inaccessibility that makes it extraordinary. The path down through the Macchia, the dense Mediterranean scrubland of rosemary and cistus and wild lavender, descends through a landscape that becomes more dramatic with every 100 meters. And then, the cove appears below, a natural arch of limestone rising from the water. Yet white pebbles rather than sand, the beach small and enclosed by vertical cliff walls that rise hundreds of meters. The water beneath the arch is a color that has no accurate name in any language, somewhere between turquoise and emerald and completely its own. Rock climbers ascend the surrounding walls. The boat arrivals from the sea disgorge their passengers into the water because the beach is too small for a proper landing. Cala Goloritze delivers exactly what inaccessibility promises. The effort it requires is precisely its protection. Cala Luna sits in the Gulf of Orose on Sardinia's eastern coast, its crescent of pale sand enclosed by limestone cliffs and accessible, like so much of this coastline, only by sea or by a demanding mountain trail. The Gulf of Orose is the wildest stretch of coast in Sardinia and among the most beautiful in the entire Mediterranean. The cliffs here drop vertically to the water, and their limestone faces eroded into caves and arches and formations of such dramatic geometry that the coastline reads as a continuous work of geological art. Cala Luna is the most celebrated stop on any boat tour of the Gulf. Its beach wide enough to breathe in, the caves behind it large enough to walk into, the water in front of it the specific clear green of the Gulf that deepens to blue as the seafloor falls away. In summer, the beach fills with day trippers arriving by boat, and the scene becomes social rather than solitary. In shoulder season, May and September, the beach empties, and the silence that belongs to an enclosed bay with vertical walls on all sides and open sea in front settles in, and the place becomes what it actually is, one of the most beautiful natural environments in Italy. Gen Olbia is where most visitors to northern Sardinia arrive and where most of them make the mistake of leaving immediately. The port city at the head of a deep natural harbor on the northeastern coast is the gateway to the Costa Smeralda and the La Maddalena archipelago, and its function as a transport hub has given it a reputation as a place to pass through rather than a place to be. That reputation is not entirely unfair, but it is not entirely accurate either. Yeah, the old town behind the port, compact, walkable, its streets lined with restaurants serving the Galura cuisine of the surrounding region, is more characterful than its gateway status suggests. The Basilica di San Simplicio, built in the 11th century in a Romanesque style of considerable simplicity and considerable beauty, is the oldest and finest medieval building in the region. The archaeological museum above the town holds finds from the Nuragic civilization that make the ancient history of the island immediately tangible. Olbia also provides access to the Golfo Aranci, a small resort town a few kilometers north whose beach and clear water make it one of the more pleasant and less crowded coastal stops in the region. Olbia rewards the traveler who looks past its function.
Bosa is the most colorful town in Sardinia, and the competition for that distinction is not negligible. A small town of 8,000 people on the western coast, clustered at the mouth of the Timo River, the only navigable river in Sardinia, below a medieval Malaspina castle whose towers crown the hill above the colored houses below. The case buildings that line the riverbank, painted in terracotta, ochre, rose, faded yellow and the particular blue-green of old shutters, reflecting the slow-moving Timo water on still mornings in a composition so complete that it requires no enhancement and no particular time of day to be beautiful. Shard, the tanning district behind the river, where Sardinian leather workers once processed hides using the tannin from the oak bark of the surrounding hills, has been converted into artisan workshops and small galleries that give this neighborhood of Bosa an authentically creative character. The beach at Bosa Marina, a few kilometers downstream where the river meets the sea, is wide and clean, and significantly less visited than the beaches of the Costa Smeralda to the north. Bosa is the Sardinia that most tourists do not find. Finding it requires only the decision to look. "4,000 years ago, in the flat plains of the Sardinian interior, someone built a tower, not a simple tower. A truncated cone of dry stone masonry. No mortar, no metal tools. The stone shaped and fitted with a precision that still communicates skill across the 4 millennia separating the builders from anyone standing inside it today. They called it a nuraj. Yet they built 7,000 of them across the island. No other culture in the world built anything quite like them. And nobody, despite a century of serious archaeological investigation, has produced a complete and satisfying explanation of what they were for. Su Nuraxi di Baromini is the largest and most complex nuragic complex in Sardinia. A UNESCO World Heritage Site whose central tower dates to approximately 1500 BC, and surrounded by a bastion of 4 secondary towers and enclosed within a village of circular stone huts that expanded over the subsequent centuries. The scale of it, standing inside the central tower, the stone walls rising around you, the skill of the construction evident in every course of masonry, makes the absence of explanation more rather than less remarkable. The Nuragic civilization built these structures, maintained them, and then vanished into the historical record, leaving almost no written trace. Su Nuraxi is their most eloquent remaining statement. Asanara is an island that has spent most of its modern history as a place people were sent to against their will. A maximum security prison occupied the island from 1885 until 1997. Housing at various points some of Italy's most dangerous criminals and the survivors of the 1978 Moro kidnapping case. But before that, it served as a quarantine station. Access was prohibited for over a century. The island's human population was forcibly relocated in 1885 and never returned. The consequence of that century of enforced emptiness is an island of extraordinary ecological richness. Asanara is now a national park and a marine reserve. Its interior covered in Mediterranean macchia and juniper forest, its coastline of granite coves completely undeveloped, and its waters holding the clearest sea in the northern Mediterranean. The albino donkeys that give the island its name, small, white, with the slightly bewildered expression of animals that have been here longer than anyone and have no plans to leave, roam freely across the landscape. Accessible by boat from Porto Torres on the Sardinian mainland, Asinara delivers the rarest thing available in the modern Mediterranean, an island that the 20th century largely missed. Everything that isolation preserved is still there. Ten destinations, one wild island, and the truth that Sardinia has been keeping from the world by simply not advertising it loudly enough. This is not a destination that performs for its visitors. It does not arrange itself into the Italy of popular expectation. The charming piazzas, the operatic gestures, the pasta arriving at the table with theatrical precision. Sardinia is older than any of that. Its identity was formed before Rome existed, maintained through Phoenician and Carthaginian and Roman and Arab and Spanish and Italian occupation, and emerged from all of it still fundamentally itself. The sea here is the clearest in Europe. That is not marketing. It is a measurable fact of water quality that the island's relatively low population and strict coastal protections have preserved. The interior is almost completely unknown to international tourism. The prehistoric towers that dot the plains are without equivalent anywhere in the world. The food, botarga, pane carasau, Culergiones, Mirto liqueur, the pecorino that has been made in these hills for 4,000 years, is a cuisine of remarkable depth that has barely crossed the island's own coastline. Go to Sardinia, rent a car, and drive inland. Take the boat to the coast that has no road. Eat in a place with no English menu. Let the island be what it actually is, rather than what the brochure version of Italy suggests it should be. This is Eco Nomad. Subscribe for more journeys like this one. We will see you in the next destination.